Welcome back gamers to everyone's favorite game full of standing, hitting, and sitting. Hoo boy did I ever put some effort in for this episode. I'm not just talking about the 130 gigabytes of footage I recorded to make this episode. I'm talking about the time it's taken me to put this together. While yes, I did play the game longer this time around, a lot of stuff happened as a result of the previous two videos. It may be premature to ask this, but if you are enjoying these videos, please subscribe and join the Discord server. I'm still trying to reach 1,000 subscribers so I can unlock my community tab. In the previous video when I first met Sloof in game while I was duoing with Mandelius, he recommended that I go to 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠𝗠𝗠𝗠𝗠𝗠𝗠𝗠𝗠𝗠 at level 21 and go to the Giant Fort. At the Giant Fort I should do something called root rotting. What's that? If you're playing a class with a root spell and a few damage over time spells, you root the enemy, and kill them with your damage over time spells. There is one major downside to doing this. How long your root lasts, is based on RNG. It could last the full duration, or it can last for a single tick. It's quite random and unpredictable. That's the basics of root rotting. I asked Sloof if he could teleport me to the Emerald Jungle once I returned from editing. Literally a week later we met up at North Karana. How did I get there? Well, I had a few errands to run in Hollis at the end of the last video, but they were not worth mentioning. Sloof casted various spells on me, like invisibility, see invisible and levitate. We ported to the Emerald Jungle. Sloof escorted me to the Field of Bone, from there I bound myself, and we made way to 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠𝗠𝗠𝗠𝗠𝗠𝗠𝗠𝗠 Sloof escorted me right to the giant fortress and even showed me the safe spots. Confident that I could handle this place alone, Sloof left me to my devices. I had been looking forward to leveling the entire week I spent editing the last video. You see, when I create these videos, I don't play the game. I dedicate all of my time to getting them done. So I was extremely excited to be back in Everquest. From one of the safe spots, I was going to pull a blue con giant. Looking back at the footage, I can see exactly what went wrong. However, in the moment, I was nervous and didn't see at all what the problem was. I rooted the giant. I casted Insidious Fever, it resisted. I casted Tainted Breath, it resisted. I casted Affliction, it resisted. Finally I managed to land a spell, Sicken. I didn't notice all of those resists. I sat back and waited for the giant to start dying. However, I didn't see its health bar going down. Somewhat panicked as I had already spent half of my mana, I casted Infectious Cloud, and it fucking resisted. I finally managed to land Insidious Fever on it, but its health wasn't going down at all. I was extremely panicked. I sat there on the ground. In my head I was thinking the following: oh fuck. Oh fuck. Oh fuck. I'm so going to lose my level. Why isn't its HP going down? This is blue con. Are you fucking kidding me? Please die, please die. Oh god, its health isn't going down. Why won't this giant asshole just fucking die? Mommy, are you there? It's your little boy. I fucked up. The root spell wore off. I said to myself, fuck this. So I engaged it in melee combat, and quickly started running away as it was absolutely demolishing me. It's interesting that my fight or flight reflexes chose fight. However, the moment I realized I stood no chance in hell, I chose flight. I was trying to find the exit to Field of Bone, but I didn't remember where it was. I turned around. Fuck, I have two giants on me now? Oh god, there was no denying that I was so fucked. I ran the other way. And right through the fortress. I ran out of the west entrance, pulling both of the giants who guarded. I fled for a while out of the fortress. I was desperate to find my way out of the zone. In my moment of panic I didn't notice the cliff I was about to run off of until it was too late. I fell to my death, and lost my level. At this point in time, it's safe to say I was pissed off. It took me an hour and a half to find and retrieve my corpse. During that time I nearly died again. I gated out and started considering my options. Kern's Tower, I thought to myself, it should be just enough to get my level back. Well, me sideways and call me Johnny. Are you kidding me? This is bull. I hate to repeat a gag, but this game me. This 23-year-old game. I hate it. Goddamn stupid 23-year-old piece of shit game. Why? Why does this game like to bend me over, and me in the I logged out for the day. That incident at the AVX was a field day compared to this bullshit. I was fed up. To be fair, it was pretty late, as I had just finished editing episode 2 that day. The next day I logged in, I was somewhat demoralized as you can imagine. I made a discovery outside of 𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗔𝗧𝗘 that there were blue cond mobs that I could fight. I wouldn't have to go inside, to the tippy top of the tower. With revenge burning in my heart, I slaughtered everything that conned blue outside of 𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗠 and regained my level in a matter of an hour. However, my appetite was not sated. I wanted revenge. I made way to the east entrance of the giant fort. I tried to advertise for a group but I had no success. I was understandably nervous about re-entering, considering how my one and only encounter with the giants went. I decided to go to number 8 on the map. It was near the fortress and also had giants. I'll tell you this right now, 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠𝗠𝗧𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 and shoved my poison dots full of righteous fury right up its ass. It was going to be difficult, but I could do this. My bloodlust was not sated. It was time for genocide. My heart could only be purified if I wiped these giant motherfuckers off the face of 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠. I went inside of the giant fortress. I was determined to solo. However, a level 28 monk named 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠's corpse was there. We decided to group up. It's safe to say that 𝗨𝗨𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠s was carrying me. He told me I could slow, heal and attack. Being a complete noob who didn't know his spells, I told him I didn't have a slow. I only discovered later that I had two slows. Drowsy, which I received at level 5, and Walking Sleep, which I received at level 14. God, I'm such a noob. 𝗨𝗨𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠s carried me for 3.5 bars. Until he ultimately had to go. After hours of successful soloing, I finally hit level 22. Later on I ended up encountering 𝗨𝗨𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠s and a druid duoing together. They invited me to their group. This time I had slow on my hotbar, as I realized not long after 𝗨𝗨𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠s left for the first time that I indeed had such a spell. After an hour or so a Shadow Knight also joined the group. We were moving rather fast. With 𝗨𝗨𝗧𝗠𝗠s as the leading force of this group, I was 1.5 bars away from level 23 before he left. However, this is where things went terribly wrong. Before I get into that, I should mention that earlier in the day I grouped with 2 other people. I don't remember their names or classes, but it ended in failure and I died. I realized not long after, that I forgot to hit the record button on OBS during the 45 minutes or so that I grouped with them. I became leery when it came to grouping here, as I had lost experience before on account of someone else's mistake. I only joined this group because 𝗨𝗨𝗧𝗠𝗠s was in it. I knew he was a good monk. 10 minutes after 𝗨𝗨𝗧𝗠𝗠𝗠s left, I was facing deja vu. A bad pull. I developed a bad habit in this forest. Whenever shit goes south, I try to run for the zone line. Every single time, I die and have to spend time searching for my corpse. This time was no exception. However, this time, I really got my corpse lost. I stubbornly refused the Shadow Knight's help to find my corpse, because frankly I was pissed that I died for a second time at the hand of someone fucking up the pull. It took me 3.5 fucking hours to find my corpse. I searched during the day, and logged off at night because I couldn't see. I even died again while searching for my corpse. At this point in time, I have never been more frustrated with this game than I was now. Goddamn, I was so pissed off. It was Friday, the day the second video was released. It was supposed to be a happy day. I was pissed off, demoralized. I had spent 2.5 days at this place, and only had 1.5 levels to show for it. I died multiple times and lost progress. This is my lowest low in Everquest. For the record, I'm not blaming the Shadow Knight. I should have just died in the fortress. I would have saved myself a lot of problems. People make mistakes. It's just that all of my frustrations piled up. I had looked forward to returning to EQ after a week away. Things were going so bad for me. It was a massive letdown. I'm sure everyone has had times like this in Everquest, where they feel like they are making no progress. You feel annoyed, frustrated and want to quit the game. Don't. Keep pushing forward. You'll get over the hump. The next day I logged in. It was Saturday morning and I decided I was going to give Worslick Woods one more chance. I went over to the giant fort and pulled a giant sapling. At the time I was pulling with my slow. The sapling resisted my slow. I rooted it successfully on the hill. It resisted my tainted breath. It resisted my affliction 3 fucking times. 5 spell resists in a row. I had 1.5 bars of mana by the time I successfully landed a dot. Nope, fuck this place. I'm fucking done here. I started running away from the fortress, but I realized I still had some mana. So I rooted the sapling, and gated the fuck out of there. I was done with this place. Yes, I encountered some really shit luck with all of those resists, but I was still feeling the frustration from yesterday. Worslick Woods didn't just defeat me, it fucking annihilated me. I asked my guild where a level 22 shaman should level. They all said Unrest. It was on Fadeware. I was nervous about going into the Emerald Jungle, as it's a higher level zone and I was only level 22. So one of my guild mates, Tinkerbell, met me at the zone line and ported me to Greater Fade-Dark. I familiarized myself with Felwith and started traveling west all of the way to Butcher Block Mountains. Through Butcher Block Mountains I followed the path south into 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠𝗠𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 someone discovered the terrain tools and went crazy with the ZBrush. Traveling across 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠𝗠 is somewhat easy. You have to keep your eyes peeled for the entrance to Unrest, as it can be quite difficult to see. I went into Unrest and advertised for a group, but I wasn't getting any replies. So I decided to level in 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠𝗠 for a bit, as it was viable until I hit level 25. 𝗨𝗨𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠𝗠 isn't bad, but isn't great. It's way bigger than it looks on the map. The mobs are also spread out. I leveled there for a little under an hour and reclaimed the progress I lost the day before. I poked my head into Unrest once again to advertise for a group. Here I met Vinz and 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠𝗠, who were both talking to me at the same time. 𝗨𝗍𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠𝗠 told me he was a fan of the 2 videos I put out. Vinz was telling me how to get there. Since I've never been to Unrest before, I needed their help to get where I was going. They ended up coming to get me. As it turned out, both 𝗨𝗍𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠 and Vinz were in the same group. Together they escorted me back to camp, and also gave me the tour of the place. 𝗨𝗍𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠 lent me a 2-handed club so I could level my 2-handed blunt skill, but I didn't use it for long as I wasn't getting any skill gains from it. I think my skill was too low. Since I was the highest level in the group and could take a few hits, I ended up being the tank. This is so that the rogue summer could backstab. 𝗨𝗍𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠 was a lot of help. He taught me things I didn't know about the game. I won't go into details, but he was a great help. We talked a good bit while we fought. 𝗨𝗍𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠 was obviously the cleric. Eventually Rikar, a paladin, joined the group and we were doing pretty well. 𝗨𝗍𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠 had his high-level druid parked at the zone for buffing. Things were going really well. However, for me, history was doomed to repeat itself. During a bad pull, I ended up dying. Thankfully, however, I didn't lose any progress, as a high-level cleric resurrected me and restored my experience. 𝗨𝗍𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠 stayed on his druid and helped us level. He transformed us into wolves. I want to inform the court that all of the proof is right here. I am indeed a good boy. Not long after I hit level 23, I decided to leave Unrest. I had received a tell from a fan that the entrance to Mistmoore was a good spot to level. So I decided to give it a try. I gated back to Greater 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗏𝗏. Lesser 𝗨𝗨𝗏𝗏 is a short run from 𝗨𝗏𝗏𝗏. To get to Mistmoore you had to travel to the southwestern corner of Lesser 𝗨𝗨𝗏𝗏𝗏. So I hit the road. What I didn't do was plan a proper route. I ended up aggroing this stupid fairy, which was a red con. It wiped the floor with me. I couldn't escape. Once again I lost a level and reverted back to level 22. I was extremely demoralized at this point. I had died twice today, and lost the little progress I made. Ultimately I had gained half a level in 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠𝗠 and in Unrest. This wasn't any better than 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠𝗠𝗠. I know I joke a lot, and call this a shitty 23-year-old game. I was at this point, legitimately starting to hate Project 1999 Everquest. I'm not trying to dramatize anything. I wasn't having fun. I wasn't making any progress at all. Ever since I started playing again after finishing the second video, I was experiencing rock bottom as an Everquest player. Just as I was debating if I should quit the game or not, 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠𝗠 messaged me and asked how it was going. I didn't notice at first. I was more focused on getting my body back. Once I noticed, I told him it was difficult, but I was doing my best. He asked me what I was up to. I told him I was trying to get to Mistmoore, that I just died and lost my level. I was stubbornly still trying to get to Mistmoore on my own. What I didn't realize until later, was that 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠𝗠 saved me from another disaster. I planned to travel straight south to the wall, then travel west along the south wall to get to Mistmoore. In my anger and frustration, I didn't realize that the path I was planning to take would end up with me dying again. The only thing that prevented this death, was 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠𝗠's offer to help me get to Mistmoore. We met up. 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠𝗠 generously escorted me to Mistmoore. I bound myself outside in case I died. I tried to look for a group while I was there, but the only people who were grouping up were going to the graveyard. I tried route running. I had mild success. However, a lot of the mobs were clumped up, making it extremely difficult to pull solo. 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠𝗠, a level 27 bard, and Diaslz, a level 24 enchanter, were looking for a group. The graveyard group was full, so they were stuck at the entrance like me. I should mention, I managed to get my level back before meeting these two. I ended up grouping with just 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠𝗠 at first. Being 5 levels ahead of me, It was safe to say he was carrying me. An hour into our group, Deals finally grouped up with us. Like me, he was a new player, and wasn't exactly familiar with grouping. So just like me at first, he tried going it alone. Together we made quite the team. It turns out that 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠 was a fan of my videos. He was hell-bent on getting me to level 24. Even when people left the graveyard group and were asking both 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠 and Deals to join them, they both said no. I felt a combination of guilt and joy. I felt guilty because they were staying together with me, when they could be getting better experience in the graveyard. I felt joy that both of them were kind enough to stay back and help someone who was having an extremely rough time with the game. 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠 told me it was the least he could do, since I had given him a lot of entertainment with my videos. I was quite happy. Both 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠 and Deals selflessly lifted me out of the rut that nearly prematurely ended my EverQuest career. From the bottom of my heart, I'd like to thank the two of you. Not only did you save this channel, but you once again reaffirmed for me how amazing this community is. It took a while for me to hit level 24, but I eventually made it. When I was done, 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠 escorted me out of Lesser Faydark because I still didn't know the route. I asked 𝗨𝗪 for a port to North Karana, but I once again forgot to hit record on OBS, so I don't have any footage of this port. Thank you 𝗨𝗪 for helping me out so much. I went to Hollis to get my level 24 spells. I was at the bank in Hollis when I received a tell from 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠𝗠, an ogre shadow knight. Hua weakling Haman. Where is you at? Mios shiny thing fair you. You may need it in the future for a special quest. What? Was the only thing that came to mind. I replied to 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠𝗠, hello. What kind of thing? He told me special thing for cannibalize 2 quest. Special spell good fair shaman. I replied, and you're willing to give it to me? Thank you. We talked for a few minutes and decided to meet at the zone line to butcher block mountains. I got all of my sexy new level 24 shaman spells and gated back to Greater Faydark. When I got there, 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠𝗠 announced he tricked me. Oh no. I replied. Yous came here fair nothing, me eats you now. However, he was just kidding, of course. There was no way he was going to eat me, I was a guilty after all. He traded me a strange ochre clay. Together we frolicked in the forest, until the ogre passed out. I jumped on his corpse a few times. I swear this isn't some kind of kinky reverse roleplay with necrophilia added. It was actually supposed to be a chase scene, where I triumphantly killed the ogre, but I kind of fucked it up, so take it for what it is. Thanks so much 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠𝗠, sorry I botched it so badly. I put the strange ochre clay in the bank, and went to bed. Before I talk about the next day, I should also mention that I was sick of having to close my guild chat because I didn't want random people on the internet to see the conversations they were having. I wanted to interact with them, however, because I was constantly recording when online, I would never have a chance to do so. I came up with a brilliant idea, to just put a black box over it in OBS. Okay, maybe I should have done this to begin with. Okay, maybe it was an obvious solution that I didn't think of previously. My bad. I logged on the next day and was determined to get my next level. I went to Dagnar's Cauldron, but it really wasn't a great spot. The mobs are all over the place, and a lot of them are clumped together, so you need to pull the wandering mobs. I decided to go back to Mistmoore. I was able to successfully make it there without dying, as I memorized the route thanks to 𝗨𝗪 and 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠. Inside duoing at the entrance was Deals, and an unfamiliar face. A dwarf cleric named 𝗨𝗪𝗠, with the last name Hunter. 𝗨𝗪𝗠 Hunter. We grouped together for over an hour. A warrior called War Donkey joined us for a bit, but wasn't there long. After roughly an hour and a half, Deals had to leave. So it was just 𝗨𝗪𝗠 and I at the entrance. During this time, we talked about a few things. However, 𝗨𝗪𝗠 imparted one major piece of advice, and that was the canny dance. At level 24 I received the spell Cannibalize. 𝗨𝗪𝗠 told me that every tick both mana and HP go up. It also tracks if you are sitting or standing before you get the regeneration amount. When using Cannibalize, wait until you see the tick happen, you stand up, cast Cannibalize, then sit down so the next tick registers that you are sitting. If timed correctly, you get the maximum amount of mana and HP regeneration. I did not fully understand this until later, but the canny dance would become one of my greatest tools. When Deals left the group, we were actually going to split up right there and then. However, I decided that I was going to stick around and root rot the enemies. So 𝗨𝗪𝗠 decided to stay with me and help me out. I'm really glad he did. If he didn't, this video would be quite different. It was only the two of us for roughly 30 minutes. It was during those 30 minutes he taught me the canny dance. Perlo, a druid and another fan of my videos, joined our group along with 𝗨𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠, being unfamiliar with my videos, looked them up while we fought at the entrance. I warned him that my videos are probably not for everyone, as I'm a bit of a weeb degenerate. I wasn't kidding when I said I was shy. Getting someone's impressions of my work while grouping is a bit intimidating, to be honest. 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠 listened to my videos while we were grinding. He didn't realize until later that he was briefly in the second one. It wasn't until 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠, a higher level barb shaman, joined that we decided to push for the graveyard. It was a slow push, but we eventually made it. On the way, a monk named 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠 joined us. Let me tell you, having a full group is a great feeling. Especially when said group knows exactly what they are doing. 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠 was an amazing tank. If you recall, Rangers are not really a good class during this period of the game, but you could have fooled me. For 2 hours we grouped together at the graveyard. Let me tell you, it was amazing. I didn't get the best experience, because I believe I was a bit underleveled for it, as I was only level 24. It's a spot recommended for levels 29 to 32. Everyone wondered what 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠's name was. After all, the name 𝗨𝗟𝗠𝗠𝗠 was a pretty genius name. He said he wondered why everyone kept asking him what his name meant. So I ventured a guess. Klingon I'd like to fuck? 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠 then typed in all caps 𝗨𝗨𝗧𝗠𝗠𝗠𝗠𝗠𝗠𝗠. I still don't know exactly what his name means to this day. I reached level 25 without a single incident. It was only when 𝗨𝗟𝗠𝗠𝗠 had to go that we ran into issues. When his replacement came in, we wiped. Told the new ranger in our group, and the monk 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠𝗠 died. Thankfully I made it to the zone line. It was at this point I left too. And wait a minute, hold those accusatory looks. I had legitimately been putting off something I had to do for 2 hours prior. I only delayed my IRL business because the group was fire. So I logged out, but I came back like I promised 45 minutes later. It turns out the group had not even successfully made it back to the graveyard in that time. As a group of 5 we successfully captured the graveyard. 𝗨𝗟𝗠𝗠𝗠 eventually returned. I stayed with the group for another hour and a half, when I decided it was time for me to leave. You see, Sloof told me about the skulking brutes. That I could make a fortune killing them. He teleported me back to Emerald Jungle and I made my way back to 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠𝗠 Woods. I met a nice troll at the skulking brutes who gave me advice, but frankly I was a bit underleveled to be facing them. I ended up gating back to Field of Bone, and logged out for the night. The next morning I logged in and considered my options. I thought about getting a port back to 𝗨𝗨𝗑 and heading back to Mistmoore, but it might be difficult to get a group there on a Monday morning. So, I decided to go back to the giant fortress. The place that completely defeated me just 2 days prior. I was nervous that I was going to have a repeat of what happened before. I carefully pulled a greenwood back to the hill. And I fucking annihilated it. You see, at level 24, I got a new dot called Envenom Breath. This replaced the previous dot I was using, Tainted Breath, which was a level 9 spell. That's a 15 level difference. No wonder these guys were fucking me up before. With a glint in my eye, the time was nigh. The time to purge every one of these stupid motherfucking giants. With righteous fury and eyes full of pure disgust and hatred, I carried out my mass murder of the giant race. Every single kill, my hate-filled erection grew bigger. Oh, it was so satisfying. Guess what? I'm the one who knocks now, motherfuckers. Ah ha 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 ha. At long last, I was vindicated for the 3.5 day rut I'd been through. This is the sweet release I hoped for when I failed to kill my first giant. In no time, I hit level 26. Fuck, did it feel good. I was making progress. To think I reached a point where I nearly gave up. If I did, I never would have realized how sweet it felt to release the beast on these bastards. I would have never had my sweet revenge. The funny thing about revenge is, once you've tasted it, you want more. With fire burning in my eyes, and hatred brewing in my soul, I continued to execute these stupid sons of bitches with ease. When I dinged 27, I thought to myself, so this is what euphoria is like. You could say I metaphorically blew my load all over 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠𝗠𝗠𝗠𝗠 Woods, but instead of crusty socks and wads of tissues, I had progress, a different type of satisfaction. The next day I decided to return to the 1 level a day philosophy until I was done with the giant fort, because it gets really busy and I wasn't interested in grouping with anyone. I'm still a team player, mind you, but all of my groups in 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠𝗠𝗠 Woods, except one, had gone horribly wrong. During my stay in 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠𝗠𝗠 Woods I mastered the canny dance, which really makes the levels fly, as you are spending far less time sitting. The major downside to both soloing and leveling in 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠𝗠 Woods was that I couldn't level at night because it was pitch black. I was looking forward to hitting level 29 so I could get Ultravision. Sloof also paid me a visit on his barred drum bass. He stayed and pulled for me during one of the nights, which I appreciated. I'd say I'm glad I picked Barbarian, though until you hit level 29 you're trading one problem for another. If I were to make an ogre shaman, I'd be able to see at night, though I'd have to deal with the difficulty associated with being evil. I have this problem in P99 where I am talking with someone in Tells, and fail to notice that someone else sent me a message, so I'll talk to the other person like I'm talking to the original person. Kilf sent me a message the next day. It was then I realized I forgot to hit record again. Don't worry, nothing happened, I had only been on for an hour prior. Kilf wanted to know if we could group up in Mistmoore, but since I was out here in 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗔𝗧𝗘 and didn't want to leave because the experience was insane, I declined. This is when I received a message from Castos. He asked how my leveling was going. I said to him, thinking I was still speaking with Kilf, slow now that it's night, I can get 1 bar during daytime though. Which is perfect as I'm aiming at 1 level a day. I can't wait till I hit level 29 and get Ultravision. It was when Castos asked, do you want a duo on the giant hill? That I was extremely confused. Then I realized I wasn't talking to Kilf. I was somewhat embarrassed as this wasn't the first time I've done this. Sometimes I'll type \r instead of \g and tell the person I last spoke to what I wanted to tell my group. I'll tell you the truth. I was reluctant to group up again in 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠𝗠𝗏. However, I was willing to give it a try one more time. I should also mention during my second stay at the giant fort, I realized I didn't need to have all of my buffs up at one time, especially here when I wasn't meleeing, but root rotting. So I kept my Spirit of the Wolf and Protect spell up. This also helped reduce the amount of downtime. Things were going quite well, until the two of us lagged out of the game for some reason. Only Castos and I lagged out, so I grew suspicious. Moments later, while fighting a giant, an Ixar Shadow Knight jumped out of a giant's pocket. Despite the fact that it was right in front of me, I didn't notice it until Castos brought it up. Immediately I thought back to my paranoia when making the first video. Oh my god, we're being fucked with, I thought. First the random disconnection, now a mysterious Ixar jumping out of a giant's pocket? I was convinced a GM was playing a trick on us, in order to tease me for being paranoid. However, it turns out that it's a scripted event. It was during this time I found out Castos had seen my videos. It seems no matter where I go, people recognize me. I won't lie, that's a massive ego boost. Despite this, I try to remain humble. After another hour of duoing with Castos, we were getting along quite well. He did not lead me to my doom. It was the opposite. In fact, I was gaining experience at a crazy rate. Before I tell the next part of this story, I should mention the tremendous luck I had the day before. The Giant Lord's tunic dropped 3 times within a few minutes. If you are not familiar with this item, it vendors for 65 platinum apiece. While killing giants, Castos and I were waiting for one of these tunics to drop. It took around 2.5 hours, but one finally dropped. I told Kaz he could have it, since he mentioned before that they were not dropping. I figured he needed the platinum. This is when Kaz shocked me. He replied, nah, like I said, I'm just around here to smack things. You need that spell money. This wasn't the only thing Kaz passed on during our time playing together. Since I play an expensive class, he graciously forfeited any personal monetary gain. A half hour later, a familiar face showed up in the giant fortress. It was Junrak, the monk who grouped with me in Mistmoore. A few minutes after he joined, I dinged level 28. It was at this point I had to make a choice. Do I stick to my 1 level a day routine, or do I continue with this amazing party? It should be pretty fucking obvious what choice I made. I logged off, watched some anime, read some manga, bought some boob NFTs and watched some porn. Ah ha ha, I'm just fucking with you. Of course I stayed online. What kind of gamer would I be if I took such an amazing group and threw it out the window? This was the perfect chance to get some more leveling done. After all, I was just 1 level away from Ultravision, the spell I've been drooling over ever since I realized that Serpent Sight is like raising the gamma in a game from 30 out of 100, to 31 out of 100. Seriously, Serpent Sight is such a shit spell. With maximum fury and controlled execution, we continued to slaughter these savage fucking animals. Meanwhile, Kilf was struggling in Mistmoore. We spoke throughout the day and I felt his plight. I just didn't have the good sense to invite him out to 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠𝗏, as I honestly thought he wouldn't want to come out here. During the day I often went to go sell. There was only one city friendly to a good aligned player like me, that is Fiona Vai. Let me tell you something, the run through Fiona Vai is terrifying. All of the mobs are a higher level than you, and they are all over the fucking place. Thankfully, if you pick the correct exit from the Swamp of No Hope, the city isn't far away. During this particular trip Castos went and bought the Staff of Battle. An hour after I returned to 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠. 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠 got a hold of me asking how it was going. I told him it was going pretty well, that the trio I had for the last few hours was still going strong. It was at this point he asked if the group needed a cleric. This was a bit of a facepalm moment. I should have asked him to come out earlier. I asked the group if he could join, mostly to be courteous. Everyone said yes, so I told 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠 to come on out. He didn't know exactly where to go, so I met him in the zone line to 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠, and escorted him to the giant fort. I felt a little relief since I wasn't the healer anymore. I won't lie, Kaz nearly died a few times because I wasn't paying proper attention to his health. I managed to save him each time, however knowing I didn't have to worry about it anymore was nice. With a dedicated healer, Kaz started pulling like a madman. There were times he pulled 2 or 3 giants at once. It was nothing we couldn't handle. It was at this point that I was glad I made the right choice earlier. My life was like a dating simulator. I nearly picked the route to the bad ending. Instead I chose the path that brought me to the true ending, the one you often have to play for tons of hours to unlock. Honestly, I don't play dating simulators. I've just seen a fuck ton of anime. It may be sad that most of my knowledge comes from anime, but I will never regret being the weeb degenerate I am, because it is this very characteristic that adds to my critical execution of these videos. If only I could apply these characteristics to my sex life, or rather my complete lack of one. However, as I've said before, I'm a man of culture. Only the most sadistic woman stands a chance with me. Not long after 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠 joined the group, I hit level 29. It was time for me to go to 𝗨𝗨𝗧 to get my new spells. I considered asking 𝗨𝗪 for a port, but I decided against it. I had been heavily relying on 𝗨𝗪 in the past. I needed to become more independent rather than constantly relying on my wizard friend for a port. I went to the bank in Fiona Bay, withdrew 30 platinum from my bank and gated back to Field of Bone. I asked a guildie if they could port me from the zone line, as I was too much of a chicken shit to venture into Emerald Jungle. Lumina graciously teleported me to North Karana. I tipped her 30 gold. 𝗨𝗪 mentioned to me when asking for a port, that it is common courtesy to at least tip the same amount as your level. This is what led me to trying to find my own ports, as I felt guilty that 𝗨𝗪 wouldn't accept my tips. Lumina even went the extra mile and used her evac skill, which brought us to the zone line to Kano's Hills. I didn't realize this at first and nearly went the wrong way. When I tell people I have a terrible sense of direction, they don't believe me until something like this happens. I realized something terrible when I went to 𝗨𝗪𝗧. All of the skills I needed were not there. One of the most crucial skills that I was excited to buy, was all the way over in Oasis of Mar. I'm not going to lie, I was kind of annoyed. I also felt guilty that I was holding up my group. So I told 𝗨𝗪𝗧𝗜𝗠 that it was going to take a while for me to buy my skills. One of the skills I needed, Befriend Animal, was in Surefall Glades, but I couldn't find the trainer for the life of me. I then came to the realization, that the skills I needed to go out of the way to get were in East Cabalus. I asked Kaz if he could grab 3 skills from me in East Cabalus. Ultravision, Invisibility, and Befriend Animals. I told him I would pay him back when we did the trade. He agreed to do so. It would save me a half hour to 45 minutes of travel doing this. I brought the plat with me to pay him back. I ported back to Field of Bone and made way back to 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠. When I asked Kaz how much I owed him, he said nothing. He said that people in the community had done so much for him, and that he was paying it forward. Honestly, the spells cost roughly 45 platinum. It wasn't the monetary value that mattered, but the act. This simple act of kindness broke me. He's been passing on loot all day. He did me a massive favor by getting those essential spells for me. Kaz acted selflessly. The selflessness of his actions were the things that broke me. I'm not going to lie, the outpouring of support since I started this series has been amazing. I was nervous to even do something like this. As I mentioned before, I am a shy guy. I often value the opinion of others. I was afraid that I wasn't funny. I was afraid that these videos were not interesting or they were boring. When editing the first and second videos, I constantly wondered if they were good enough. I've been a very self-conscious person my entire life. I pour everything I have into everything I do. Even when the praise for both videos were coming in, I wondered if I was even worthy of such praise. It was weird that people were reaching out to me in game, and telling me they loved my videos. Some people even going as far as having conversations with me. The praise felt undeserved. In the making of this video I gained so much. An outpouring of adoration, new friends, and a feeling of belonging. From the bottom of my heart, I thank you all for accepting me into this community. Thank you for talking to me, Thank you for showing an interest in these videos. I will continue to produce the best content I possibly can. I will also continue to be the best good boy I can be. There may be times in game where I am busy and can have a conversation with you, but don't feel like you are disturbing me or pissing me off by reaching out. I am flattered that you would take the time out of your life to do so. Thank you. When I returned to the giant hill, 𝗟𝗓𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠 wasn't there. So it was just the three of us. Kaz, Kilf and myself. Together as a trio we did quite well. When I was close to hitting level 30, Kilf had to leave due to IRL reasons. So it was just Kaz and I against the giants. Within a short amount of time I reached level 30. Which is also the time you should consider finding a new place to grind if you are killing the forest giants. However, I didn't want to leave yet. I wanted to help Kaz hit level 29. After roughly another hour of playing, Kaz finally dinked level 29. When it was just Kaz, Kilf and I, we made plans to level together the next day. Kilf was going to be late however as he had to work. The plan of action was to go to the graveyard in Mistmoore, as it was good from level 29 to 32. Both Kaz and I put in a 12-hour day that day. We both logged out on the giant hill, and agreed to log in early in the morning the next day. We did just that. The next morning we both logged on. With my new power of invisibility I was significantly less worried about traversing the Emerald Jungle. I was still unfamiliar with it. In the process of trying to find the ramp I led Kaz off a cliff and nearly killed him. It took a moment to find the correct spot to meet the druid. We both got ported to Steamfront Mountains. I ran into 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠 to vendor the items I still had in my inventory and we made our way to Mistmoore. We arrived without incident. However, when I entered I made a critical lapse in judgment. You see, I thought we would be fine if I casted invisibility on both of us. We could run up to the graveyard. Big mistake. Mistmoore has annoying spellcasters that heal themselves like the druid bandits out in West Karana. I ended up getting the both of us killed. Kaz sadly lost his level. I felt terrible. But we pressed on. Thanks to the invisibility spell, I ran up to the graveyard and retrieved our corpses. We then proceeded to slowly kill our way towards the graveyard. We were unsure if we could hold it just by ourselves, so we camped close by. Kaz quickly regained his level thankfully, and a druid named 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠𝗠 joined us for a while. Before I go on with the story, I want to inform any new players about something called a hell level. Once you hit level 30, you get your first hell level. You get reduced experience gains, making it take about 2 or 3 times longer to get a level. You get a hell level at level 30, 35, 40 and 45. Every level once you hit level 50, is a hell level. I do not know if this is accurate information, but I was told by someone that it takes the same amount of time to hit level 50, as it does to hit level 60. Don't quote me on that though. So being in my first hell level, I quickly noticed just how slow I was gaining experience. Kaz and I were killing blue mobs, but it was taking forever just to get a bubble. A little over an hour after 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠𝗠 left, a monk named 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗏𝗠𝗠𝗠 joined us. With his added support, we were able to eventually push our way into the graveyard. When I went back to 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗏𝗠𝗠𝗠 to vendor all of the items I got, 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗏𝗏𝗠𝗠𝗠 was gracious enough to hop on his druid and buff us. A ranger named 𝗨𝗟𝗠𝗠𝗠𝗠 joined us. Once I returned we were able to easily retake the graveyard. Roughly another hour had passed, and Kilf was finally able to join us. With him he brought a paladin named 𝗨𝗨𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. I was quite happy. I was experiencing a full group in the graveyard. Unlike before, I was in the correct level range, so the experience I was getting was decent, while decent for a hell level. Unfortunately our monk 𝗨𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 made an error in pulling. It was no big deal to be honest, as escaping Mistmoore is quite easy if you have Spirit of the Wolf. Unfortunately though, Kaz, 𝗨𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 and 𝗨𝗨𝗏𝗏𝗏 died. Kilf made a suggestion, to not pull from the area that caused the wipe. He wasn't mad, he was just offering a suggestion. 𝗨𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏's reply to this was, "Yeah, sorry, my fault for the death, I will drop from the party, thanks for the invite." The entire group was shocked. I personally thought 𝗨𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 was trolling. But he actually took it to heart, and seriously quit the group. I was stunned. 𝗨𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, if you are watching this, I think you overreacted. Kilf isn't the type of guy to get pissed off because of a wipe. He was merely offering a suggestion. No one was mad at you. You did a wonderful job pulling, so please don't be mad at Kilf, as he didn't do anything wrong. You can't properly tell the meaning behind text. He wasn't trying to berate you for a simple mistake. I've gotten to know Kilf well, it wasn't like that. 𝗨𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 left the party, but thankfully Lubo, a rogue and fierce deity, an enchanter, filled the spots not long after. Before I continue, I need to tell you something. I am not going to use the footage or the name of the person involved in this incident, as I don't want him to be doxxed in-game for his actions. I will tell you that the following part of the story was not fun for me or anyone involved. While we were regrouping, a level 36 wizard decided to steal our camp. He didn't do a camp check. He zoned in and saw us at the entrance regrouping. It should be pretty damn obvious where a group of players level 29 or greater are going in Mistmoore. Yet he rolled up and stole our camp. We noticed this when we arrived at the graveyard. Conflict ensued when he accused us, a full party of 6 who had been there for a few hours already, of kill stealing. I told him I had video proof, which as you can see if you are watching this, we were here long beforehand. The conflict did not end when we got our camp back, as he was taking a lot of the mobs we had previously been killing. We eventually made peace, but the entire experience left a bad taste in my mouth. I confirmed with a few of my friends, and they agree that we were in the right. Please in the future, do a camp check. It's common courtesy and will decrease the amount of unpleasant confrontations like this in the future. I logged out for the day after I hit level 31. I spent 10 hours in Mistmoore that day. It was time well spent though, as I got over my hell level. The next morning I logged in, both Kaz and 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠 were already online and had formed a group at the graveyard in Mistmoore. We stayed there for a little over 4.5 hours. At times we had a full group, others we didn't. Wixter even joined our group at one point. After 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠 left, both Kaz and I decided to leave Mistmoore. I was level 32, and he was level 31. We went to the Centaur huts in South Karana. To be honest, it was a really cool place. You could even vendor your items there. However, we ran into a problem. There were not enough Centaur there to justify us leveling there. So we decided to check out Splitpaw. However, we couldn't level in Splitpaw because a warrior was soloing the entire entrance part of the zone. So we decided to go to West Karana and try to kill corrupt guards. However, we weren't quite high enough to pull that off yet. So in a last-ditch effort, we got a port to the Western Commonlands. Our goal was to level in Solusek, also known as 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠. In order to do that, we traveled to the Eastern Commonlands. We both bound our characters in Freeport. I bound at the city entrance, and Kaz bound at the gypsy camp just outside the walls. Together we traveled north to Nectulo's forest, which houses the Dark Elves. We continued north on our path to Lavastorm Mountains. We found the entrance to 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠. Let me say one thing before I continue the story. Whoever made this dungeon is the most dirty sadistic bastard in history. Just take a look at this map. Fuck, this place is hard to navigate. We needed to go from the entrance, to the far north to the Goblin Captain room. On the way, every single goblin aggroes you regardless of level. You also have to contend with traps and narrow passageways, where one misstep would spell doom. We got lost rather easily. However, we eventually found the path that leads to where we were going. It was en route to this goblin room that we discovered this was going to be quite difficult to do without 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠. While struggling to get mana, and keep Kaz alive, I made a critical error. I stepped forward right into a hole that I didn't see. I quickly casted invisibility on myself and tried to find my way back up to Kaz. However, by the time I got there, he was already dead. He died killing the final mob in the room. I felt a combination of fury and annoyance at this moment. I was furious that I was not aware enough. I was annoyed that I didn't make it to him in time. Kaz told me to port out of the room. I did. We met back up in Freeport. Kaz lost his level, reverting back to level 31. He quickly came up with a plan of action. When we got back to 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠, I would cast invisibility on him. He would go to his corpse, loot everything but one item. Drag his corpse back. I would then cast invisibility on both of us, and we'd go back to where we were. He was going to guide me there with his corpse. At the entrance I casted invisibility on Kaz. However, he came back a moment later. It appeared that it was one of those unlucky invis procs. Much like how root the spell could randomly wear off. So I casted invisibility on him again. But he came right back with a horrible revelation. The goblin wizards could see through invisibility. Fuck, I was so pissed off at myself. We both tried to come up with a plan, but nothing worked. Kaz ended up dying again, bringing his experience loss down to a bubble. We pleaded with the higher levels in 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠 to get his corpse. No one was listening. Eventually someone came by and agreed to help. After an hour Kaz got his corpse back. We were both tired, and decided to call it for a day. As we would rather do this with 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠𝗠. The next day we got a late start. Kaz also had limited time due to IRL reasons. However, 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠𝗠 was with us. The Triforce was complete. As a duo, we are deadly. But together, we make the ultimate trio. With fury and righteous vengeance we slaughtered our way to the camp. What preceded was one of the best leveling sessions I've ever had. It was short, only 3 hours long. But 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠 has a high ZM value. If you're new, you might be wondering what a ZM value is. The higher it is, the better experience you get. I was determined to hit level 34 on this Saturday morning. 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠 the absolute mad lad, was executing the same strategy he was using at the Forest Giants. By letting 𝗨𝗧𝗼's health fall below 40%. 𝗨𝗧𝗼 had a higher chance to crit. In both of these cases, he was deleting the enemy. My melee capabilities don't come close to that of a warrior, but I still contributed in the usual way, by slowing, rooting and dotting the enemy when need be. One thing I've neglected to mention at this point, is that at level 29 I earned my first haste spell, Quickness. At level 24, I also earned my first regeneration spell, Regeneration. If you are unfamiliar with Project 1999 Everquest, regeneration spells work slightly different than that of WoW. In World of Warcraft you put a hot on the tank, heal over time spell, it heals over time for 10 to 30 seconds depending on the spell. In Project 1999 Everquest my regeneration spell lasts for 8.2 minutes. It heals 5 HP every tick. So I've been using this spell not only on myself and the tank, but on people pulling ore, off tanks. Regeneration has been rather handy in assisting me in my canny dance, as I don't have to sit or use a healing spell to regain health after dancing. So I was putting these spells on 𝗨𝗧𝗼, and occasionally other buffs. However, he often told me he was fine with quickness and regeneration. In this group setting I find myself doubting less, because 𝗨𝗧𝗼 does an overwhelming amount of damage, especially when he is below 40% health. After level 30 he also lost his damage cap, so his DPS at times can be insane. It's rather safe to say that my friends are carrying me through this game. However, I try to play as smart as I can. I try not to waste mana. I've learned to play like this through a combination of group play and advice given to me by others over the course of this video. When 𝗨𝗧𝗼 had to go, we decided to head back to the entrance, as I was confident that I would hit level 34 on my way out, as there are a lot of mobs. As we passed into the room where 𝗨𝗧𝗼 died yesterday, we encountered an issue. There was only one mob to begin with, but slowly more started spawning in. It seemed like an endless wave was coming in. As 𝗨𝗟𝗏 was throwing out his last heal, the unthinkable happened. I fell down the hole again. I tell my group what happens. 𝗨𝗏 started having flashbacks. However, I was cool as a cucumber. My 500 IQ brain quickly realized the best play was to cast invisibility on myself and run back up to them. I made it back up with time to spare. Using my invis was the move, as I would have pulled more mobs onto 𝗨𝗏𝗧 if I didn't, which would have resulted in certain death. Everyone survived. After meting up a bit, we continued heading back to the entrance. 𝗨𝗏 ported out when we reached safety, however I still needed that level, I was so close. 𝗨𝗏𝗧 managed to find a blue mob, and we decisively killed it, causing me to hit level 34. I was quite thrilled with myself. I reached my goal for the day. Before we got our port to the Western Commonlands the day before, I had the good sense to get my level 34 spells in 𝗨𝗏𝗧𝗏. So when we were done for the day, my spells were in my bank. At level 34 Shaman get a pet. Companion spirit summons a spirit wolf. Which is great because I love dogs, and wolves. This is one of the things that contribute to Shaman being soloing machines. It's unfortunate though that, if you plan on soloing as Shaman you don't really hit your stride until level 24. I also got Scourge, a new dot, and a variety of new buffs. One of the new buffs I received is Talisman of 𝗨𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, which increases your hit points. I also got Health, which increases your stamina, and Shifting Shields, which increases your armor class by 18. Back when I first grouped with 𝗨𝗏𝗏 and 𝗨𝗏, I made the decision that my last day of playing would be on Sunday. I needed to make a new video after all. I had a lot of footage, and thought this video would be too long if I continued recording for it. Plus, there was a high demand for the next video. So I figured I'd start working on it on Monday. This Sunday we decided to go to Splitpaw. I should mention that at this point, I had not slept properly in days. So I was rather groggy, lethargic and felt like shit during the entire day. Insomnia seems to run in my family, and every 3 to 6 months I go into what I call the insomnia spiral, where I don't sleep properly for days, sometimes weeks. I felt really shitty on this Sunday morning, but I really wanted to get level 35 for the sake of this video, so I pushed myself. Once again we were late starting this day. 𝗨𝗏𝗏 was going to be late this day, so it was just 𝗨𝗏𝗏𝗏 and I once again. We made it to Splitpaw, and thankfully no one else was grouping there. We ended up picking up 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠, a gnome wizard who was also a fan of my videos. Ha, a fellow guildmate also joined us. During this time I stepped out of a melee position, and instead had my pet melee for me. In 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠's absence I was the group's healer. So I focused on healing, and putting up quickness, regeneration and any requested buffs up on my group. I slacked a bit in my slowing duty, but I was trying to ensure I had enough mana for emergency heals. 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠 arrived a few hours later, and I felt slightly relieved. I was now capable of doing something I've been wanting to do ever since I found out from Sloof that I got a pet at level 34. I fully buffed the tanks. I buffed the DPS, and above all I buffed both mine and the necromancer's pet. I also found out that I can equip armor and weapons on my pet, which is a little weird since it walks on 4 legs. I didn't mind though. Together as a group, we stomped our way through Splitpaw, and even camped in the higher level area because our DPS output was insane. It wasn't until our necromancer left, and a few other people joined us that we wiped. I didn't mind at all. I was already level 35 at this point. Despite how horrible I felt, I wanted to stick with Kaz until he hit level 35 as well. However, he was a full level behind me. With the wipe he lost valuable progress. I desperately wanted to get him level 35. However, it was already 4 PM, or 1600 hours for those on military time. We'd be there until late. As the day went on, I just felt worse and worse. I deeply regret this, but I decided to call it shorty after the wipe. Kaz was thankfully understanding of my condition. I had been playing for 6 hours like this to begin with. My back hurt, my head ached from all of the coffee I drank. An hour before I called it quits in Splitpaw, someone joined my Discord. He said he watched all of my videos, and they got him playing Project 1999 Green after a few years. He told me he made a shaman. After I asked him what race he made, I knew what I had to do. I went to Castos, I pulled out some plat so the Kaz could port back to 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠, since he didn't have any plat on him and couldn't go into Castos. I also pulled out a bag full of old gear that I wasn't using anymore. En route to meet Kaz to hand him plat for his port, I met 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠 at the zone line. She buffed me and asked where I was going. I told her I was going to meet my friend Kaz. I was in a bit of a hurry, so I rushed off to him. Once I knew Kaz could make it back home to 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠, I sent Severin a message and told him to meet me at the front of Castos. Out ran a naked barbarian shaman. It was very reminiscent of my own starting experience. He was level 8 and leveling in Castos sewers. I handed him a banded armor chest, the ebon war spear, the cracked darkwood shield given to me by 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠𝗠. I also handed him miscellaneous pieces of banded armor, and 50 plat. 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠 showed up. Both of us hit him with our best buffs. I believe 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠 also gave him some items. She told me to give him my chest piece, and handed me a blood-stained tunic. I don't remember the name of the chest I gave him, but Rezzer gave it to me in Unrest. I didn't mind giving him the shield, because I still have one memento left from 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠𝗠, the large sewing kit he gave me. I will carry it with me always. He thanked us profusely for the gear and buffs. Before I logged out, I had one simple message for him. The same words of wisdom imparted to me by 𝗨𝗟𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠𝗠, Sloof, Kaz and several other people I've met on my journey. Pay it forward.